Welcome and thank you for being here with us for a virtual webinar dedicated to sports. The webinar is part of the International Sports Programming Initiative, which is a State Department Sports Diplomacy Exchange Program, and it's implemented by World Learning. This specific webinar, it's done by World Learning, working with the Digital Communication Network and supported by the State Department. Today's discussion is about developing, identifying, nurturing sports talent from a very young age, including how to deal with the sports performance, how not to let anybody behind, even if the athletes or the student athletes or the young athletes don't make it to be a professional, which is very difficult and very, very rare. I'm Vlad Spencer from World Learning and will be the moderator of this panel with my colleague Anna Tadevosyan, who is going to talk to us now all the way from Yerevan, Armenia. So thank you all for participating. And as you know, in Zoom, you have a chat room where we hope you'll introduce yourself. You could talk about your organization. You could post links to what you do. And most importantly, please ask questions. This is going to be a discussion, a dialogue, and it would be richer and obviously more productive if you are involved. Thanks again for being with us. Anna, you have the floor.
Thank you, Vlad. Hello, everybody. I'm glad to see all of you here and mostly our great speakers. We'll talk today about how to raise a champion. I know that this topic is very interesting for the coaches and for athletes that they are finishing their careers. And we will try now to find out how we can raise a champion, and if the athlete will not become a champion, how sports can help them in their lives. First, we'll start with our speaker, Aleko Eskandarian. He is former MLS player. He played in DC United, and now he's Director Player Development in Major League Soccer. Aleko, hello, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Aleko, I want to ask you, as a soccer player, so you are working in athlete development, and please tell us about your job a little bit, how you identify talents, how you work with them, what's your job?
Yeah, I think before I can speak about my job, it's important to kind of note my pathway to get there. And obviously, as you mentioned, I played in MLS for 8 years as a pro. And after I had a career-ending injury and was forced to retire, I actually went back to school, finished my degree, and then I was involved in the academy system and coaching professionally for about 5 years before I made the transition into the front office at Major League Soccer. My role now is a little bit of everything, to be honest with you. I work usually with most of the first teams and everything from managing the salary cap to budget space and all that stuff. But with my expertise specifically on the youth development side, working with all of our pro clubs at Major League Soccer with their professional academies and trying to nurture and develop talent in the best way possible to prepare them for potentially a professional career, or if not, even if it's school or life.
So you work with players like the clubs, the main clubs, and now I know that MLS is developing the academy system. So do you involve of helping them to find, like MLS is helping to identify the talents for the clubs?
Yes, absolutely. In world football right now, obviously scouting and signing players is happening at a much younger and younger age every year. So yeah, you have to put an additional heightened sense of nurturing this talent and trying to put the players and these young people in a position to succeed as much as possible. So that involves a lot of work off the field. Yes, on the field as well, but more importantly, off the field, to make sure that these players are mentally developed, that they're able to deal with pressure, that they are able to deal with maybe finances if they are given a contract. There's so much that goes into walking into a locker room and being part of a team that has nothing to do with soccer. So there are a lot of different things that all of our clubs are using various resources to prepare their players as best as possible.
There are millions of boys and girls in US playing soccer now, and it's kind of hard to identify talent. You need like lots of big scouting support for this. As you said, you are involved and you do some scouting. From what age you think you can identify the talent for the big clubs, academies?
Yeah, there's no single answer because there are early developers, late developers. There are players who go through different peaks and valleys on their journey, and we see examples all the time of certain players from 8 years old. You can say, "Oh, I knew this guy was going to be a top player," and then there are other guys who are overlooked maybe until they're 16, 17, even 20, and all of a sudden something happens that changes them. Maybe sometimes it's mental, maybe it's confidence. So you can never close the book on any player, I would say. But yeah, if we're talking about when you can notice traits, as early as 10, 11, 12 years old, you can start seeing certain special qualities in a young player. But then there's a long way to go to see whether they make it as a pro. But you can start noticing qualities at that early of an age.
And what do you think, is there any receipt to how to raise a champion?
There's so many different examples, if I'm being honest, because, you know, at the end of the day, like I said, there's no one straight journey for anyone. And sometimes the more difficult the journey, the better off you will be, because that adversity can fuel you in the end. And I know from my own personal experiences of my own journey, and from different players that I've seen or coached throughout the years, there's really no one secret ingredient. But what I can tell you is that mental strength is huge, and how you develop that mental strength can be different depending on circumstances. But at the end of the day, that's the one common trait I think in any person who's a master in their field is mental strength.
Thank you, Aleko. We'll come back with more questions. Now we'll go to Hazel Clark, three-time US Olympian, Director of Sports at Bermuda Authority. Hazel, welcome.
Thank you.
So we move soccer from team sport to individual sport. Please tell us what it takes to become an Olympian in individual sports, like what talents, how you identify them.
Well, you'll see behind me, I have a picture of me with my sisters. And I think that for me, my parents set a great model of raising champions, I guess you would say. Both my sisters and I, between all of us, have made 13 Olympic teams, 13 US Olympic teams. We qualified for the 2000 Olympics. We were the only family ever to sweep the trials, get first, second, and third. We all were world-class athletes, top 10, top 5 in the world athletes, Olympic gold medals. So I think as a family, something that was very interesting, and my brother also was a standout athlete and a full scholarship athlete, but I don't want to forget him. But I think that my parents did a really good job of was early on, they made us try everything. They exposed us to every sport. They did not have us specialize in just track and field. I did gymnastics, tennis, figure skating, everything. And it taught me a few things. It set a great foundation. I had a lot of different skills and was obviously exposed to a lot of things, and we found out what my strengths were, which I think is important. But also it taught me how to lose. I was not the best on every team or in every sport that I participated in. In fact, I was terrible at basketball. I would get down the court before everyone and miss all my shots. But they taught me that no matter what you try, you cannot quit. You have to stay in there and you have to learn something from it. And I think that instilled something in all of us that helped us as the level got higher and higher. I was #1 in the nation in high school and then college. And then as a pro, suddenly I'm on the circuit where everyone can basically run what I run. And on any given day, you can be first or last because you're with the cream of the crop. And so I had to know how to sometimes, quite frankly, get my butt kicked, not have the best race, and then be able to rebound and come back. And I think champions are resilient, and I learned to be resilient early on.
You do camps, track and field camps, and different ages, as I know. And can you identify the talents directly during the camps? It's like maybe a 1 week camp, but you need to find out who is the next champion. What it takes to do it?
It takes a few things, and I have the funny thing is I almost every year inevitably I have a camper come in for one event and we say, why don't you try this? It goes back to that exposure piece, and then they walk out realizing that they have strengths in maybe a different discipline. So, you know, that's one part, but it goes back to that mindset that we were just speaking about. The mindset is key. You can see athletes that just give in, that just give it their all every time, that just are able to focus and find that inner strength to just continue. And especially in track and field, I think distance and middle distance, when you have to be so disciplined and it's really painful and you have to do those morning runs by yourself, you need that inner discipline. And that is definitely something that helps us to identify a champion, because talent's not enough. You have to have the mindset.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, do you think that the athletes, they are born talented or you can develop the talent?
That is a great question. So I think that people are born with talent, and, you know, some people are genetically superior, right? But I actually have seen parents that have good intentions and coaches that have good intentions actually, for lack of a better word, destroy that talent by trying to specialize them too early, by overtraining them too early. I really hate to see, it breaks my heart to see a 6-year-old pulling a sled on the track, or, you know, I mean, I just really think that if you do not bring an athlete along as a coach or a parent, and you don't have that discipline to hold back, and my parents are great about that, and let them develop, you can really shorten an athlete's lifespan, or maybe get them to the point where they never realize their potential. So I do think that athletes are born with talent, but it's important for us to nurture it properly.
So as you said, the coaches and parents' role are very important. And if the athlete will not make it to pro, how we can make sure that they will not lose their lives, or they be active in life, stay in sport, do something else in sport?
I'm sorry, my internet was a little shaky, but I think what you said is that parents and coaches play a very important role in keeping them in the sport and keeping them, absolutely. I can truly say that I wouldn't be here right now without my parents. They made me do something, try something. They instilled that you cannot quit, and you're not going to be the best at everything, but you're never going to be a quitter. And that's not just helped me as an athlete, it's helped me in the corporate world to be where I am today as a director of sports business development in Bermuda. So I'm very grateful for those lessons.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Hazel. And we'll have, I'm sure, questions for you. Now we'll go to Frank Traore. He's a technical director in NBA Africa. Frank, hello. Frank.
Hello. Yep, I'm here.
You're in a place where there are lots of talents, and I want to know how you work with them, from what age you involve them in sports.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm a director of basketball operations for the NBA based in Johannesburg. And we have built so many programs across the continent at the grassroots levels, you know, junior NBA programs. And then we have NBA academies now, and we have our major basketball talent idea event, which is Basketball Without Borders. So we trying to, you know, because basketball is, you know, it's not a new sport, but it's a sport that is growing tremendously on the continent. We understand that we have to start it with the young players from schools. So we have sports in schools. We try to introduce the game to them. We have tried to sell the game to them. And from that, you know, we noticed that a lot of young players are very talented and have passion for the game. We also understand that, you know, to grow the game on the continent, we have to work with young coaches to empower them to continue to work with these young kids. So to our junior NBA programs, the junior NBA is basically our youth development program where we have players from 14 and under that plays games, they practice with their coaches right after school, and they play games. And some of the top players were selected the last 2 years to take part our first Junior NBA World Championship in Orlando. And the Africa team came second both years. So we use those platforms to select or watch and see players that have potential talent that can perhaps use basketball as a tool to further the education. I myself, I was born in Burkina Faso, one of the poorest countries in the world. Um, just like any African kid, had aspiration to playing at the highest level possible. And with the NBA, the first basketball without borders that they did back in 2003 in South Africa, I was selected to be part of that team. So the NBA, picked the top players of Burkina, and I was among them. And they flew about 120 kids to South Africa. You can imagine what that is. Before then, there was never anything like that. So I used that opportunity. I made the All-Star team when I came to South Africa. Then I got a scholarship to go to high school in the States, and then got a scholarship to go to college. And then right after college, started working, and then, started working for the NBA, moved back to Africa. And then I'm running the actual same program that gave me the opportunity to change my life. I'm the one who's leading that, who's picking the players to come to Basketball Without Borders. And a lot of them now, some of them in which are in the NBA, such as Joel Embiid, that went through the Basketball Without Borders, and many, many more that are doing other stuff than playing in the NBA. Some of them are doctors, some of them are pilots, some of them are coming back to give back. They're back on the continent working with other young people. So, ultimately, this is what we really want to do, and we need to continue to empower young people and give them opportunities.
So you are using your own example to show the boys and girls the player pathway where they can go. Do you do you show them this clear player and talent pathway from where and to where they can go? Do you have this kind of programs so the kids can come and see, okay, I'm a player at 5 years old and I can be an NBA player in 20 years old through these programs?
Well, so number one, we're using basketball to instill life skills. That's the number one goal, because you don't know, nobody knows, because players, somebody can start late and still have the potential to make it. Somebody can start early, but don't have the potential to make it. So it's something you really can't touch or feel. But what we do is we know that if you play the game of basketball, you learn to play the game the right way, and then we instill these soft skills to them, they can succeed. If it happens, which is a small percentage, that you are very good enough to get a scholarship, that's the number one goal for these young people, to use the sports to further their education. And then if it happens that you are that good to play at the highest level possible, that's a plus. So, but we're trying to, we don't want to, we want to manage expectation, but at the same time, we want to allow the kids to dream. Anything is possible. It depends on the work they put in and the will. Everything is possible, and it's on them to continue to work hard and to believe that they can achieve it.
Perfect. So what's your advice to the young people? If they don't become pros, what should they do? Because some of them, they end up in very bad psychological, they cannot make it, they cannot keep up with this because they did not become pros. What's your advice to that people? So how to use sport in their lives?
My advice is what I said earlier. Use sports as a tool to further your education. They go hand to hand. If you play sport without education and you get injured, you might not be able to have, a way of, succeed. I wouldn't say succeeding, but it'd be more difficult for you to find your way when you grow up. But if you use basketball, you practice, you study hard, together, you can make it. We all did that. A lot of people before us did that. They showed us the way that I never played professional, but yeah, I'm involved in professional sports. So you don't need to be the best at it. We have guys that play the game, but today the commissioners, right? They're lawyers. They work in marketing. They still have an impact on how we grow the sports. So that's what we always talk to our young people on the continent. You know, we really stress that they need to really take the academics seriously, and they need to focus on and balance the sports and the education.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. Our next speaker is from Morocco, Hisham Bennouna. He's a basketball coach at Tibu Maroc, and Hisham will share his experience working with elite groups in Tibu. It's an amazing organization that has many basketball benches all over the country that they empower young people through basketball. Hisham, please tell us more about it.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Vlad and Anna for the invitation and for giving me the opportunity to share with you my modest experience. So I'm Coach Hisham Bennouna from Casablanca. I'm Dean of Students at American Academy Casablanca and also basketball coach at Tibu Basketball Academy. I have 15 years experience in coaching. I had the chance to participate in an exchange program under the topic Sports for Social Change, sponsored by the US Department of State and administered by World Learning. So this experience helped me a lot to see things clearly and to know what I'm supposed to do once in my country to help you to prepare them for life by using sports. I think, in Morocco, we only have soccer as a professional sports, but all the rest, so it's really hard for us. So as Anna said, I will share with you our model at TV Basketball Academy. As you can see, we have two groups, a group of elite and another group of challenge. I'll be focusing more on elite group. So after completing tryouts, it can take a month of tryouts. The coaches can identify those who have potential and put them directly in elite group. Kids in this group are the future high-level athletes. They benefit from 3 practices of 2 hours per week, which is mean 6 hours plus a match. And the weeks where they don't have a match, they benefit from 4 practices, which is mean 8 hours of practice. In addition to that, we organize individual workouts to improve, of course, their physical and technical skills. Also friendly matches regularly to evaluate the progress of their work. We are affiliated to the Moroccan Basketball Federation, and therefore we participate in different competitions organized at regional and national level. In addition to this, we participate every year in international tournaments, especially in Spain and France. In 2016, we also participate in a tournament in Orlando, USA. Kids learn a lot from this experience beyond all technical aspects. And they also benefit from summer camps that help them to keep the rhythm and prepare the new season. The most part, and it's hard to raise champion in Morocco because of a lot of obstacles. The most important one is school schedules. We have in Morocco public schools, private schools, international schools, and each one has their own schedule, and therefore it's not easy to plan practices for kids. And in general, practices are scheduled from 7 to 9 p.m., which impacts the performance of the players, especially after a long day at schools. So in a group of 10 kids, 3 of them will go on to professional sports careers. And now the question is, what are we going to do with the 7 others? This is where sports comes as an important tool to prepare them for a better life in the future. Personally, I try to use every situation taught at practice related to our lives. And the most basic and the one that I use with the under 12 is the triple threat. As you know, triple threat is composed of 3 aspects: dribbling, passing, and shooting. What I try to transmit to them is that the dribbling is like a person who is moving forward in life and tries to avoid obstacles. At a time when we can no longer move forward, we have to use the pass, which has the objective to move forward, but with the help of other people like our family, our colleagues, our community, and all these to make a shot, which is our objective that we have to reach. For the adults, I try to transmit all the time in my speeches that not everybody can be a high-level athlete, but that they can all be leaders in their community. I try to give them the opportunity to manage teams of small kids in practices to feel the challenge and especially to try to find the necessary solution. A match is like a life. There are moments when we lose and moments when we win. The goal is to manage it well. It is the same in our life. Kids need to know that they will surely have problems in the future and that they have to deal with them just like in a game. And finally, I'd like to share with you one of my favorite quotes. A coach will impact more young people a year than the average person does in lifetime. And honestly, we are able to help our kids to build their future and reach their goals, or even help them to have it if they don't have it. We have one of the strongest tools, which is sports. And my story, I played until under 18. I knew that I'm not too much good to play in high level, but I had a good teamwork and good team spirit. And one of my former coaches told me that Hisham maybe will be a great coach. Just try. It's better for you to stay in the bench. And I tried it, and I just would like to say thank you to him because he impacted my life. Thank you for your attention, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Hisham. I have a one question. So in Tibu, in chapters, all the kids are welcome to play and to be part of Tibu, right?
Yeah.
And then you create elite teams. So please tell us a little bit how it comes. You have parallel, the group that is just playing, and then you choose the talents that goes to elite groups.
So basically, we kids in our academy start basketball from 4 years old. We have from 4 to 12. We don't have elite group and we don't have challenge group because we can't identify talent in this age. But starting 13, then we can move them to elite group or challenge group. So we organize what we call preseason camp. It's about a month of practices. We have all our coaches there. So we organize our practices, and then we can identify who can go to elite and who can stay in challenge. Basically, who can go to elite is the one who can be a high-level athlete. It's about maximum 16 or 17 players per group. And the others move to challenge group. The objective is to teach them to move, why not, in many years to elite, and if not, to be great leaders in the future. And this is how it works in TIG.
And besides basketball trainings, you do only leadership trainings, business trainings, English classes. So you basically prepare kids for life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So basically, we all know that, as I said, in group of 10, only 3 will go to professional level. So our goal as an educators, as coaches, is to help people to move forward and to build their life. So that's why we're using sports as a tool of education and support, of course. So we organize the leadership classes, English classes, and as you said, community works. It's something important. I think you know that TV, we have what we call centers. We go to the poor neighborhood and we offer them 3 practices per week. And we're inviting our players from TV Basketball Academy to go and help them in math, in education, of course, and to show them to be in why not role models, to push them to do something good for the country. And actually, we're doing what we call initiative intilaqa. It's a word in Arabic word. We're moving people to create their own academy in all the sports, not only basketball. And we're trying to show them the TIBA model to why not do better than, why not?
Sure, thank you, Hisham. And we'll go to our last speaker, Ruben Lescano, Head of Methodology at Football Federation of Armenia, also head coach of U17 boys team. Ruben, welcome. And I want to ask you, so what's important to find a talent being a national team coach? Ruben? Yeah.
Hello. Now, first of all, thank you for your invitation. I would like to introduce myself first. My name is Ruben Lezcano. As Ana said, I'm working here in Armenia with Ginés Melendez, who is one of the most important persons in the soccer football related with the development of talents. He has been in charge of the Spanish Football Federation for 18 years, and he has won almost everything in youth football. And well, of course, it's a pleasure to work with him. I am a professor. I did my PhD in talent development, in soccer talent development. So this is my strongest point is not only the identification, but also the development of soccer players. I have been listening to the different speakers, and I would like to say some things about the opinion of some of them, because I think there are very important things in what they say. To find a talent, first of all, in one of the speakers says the talent borns or the talent grows up. Okay, it's both. You need to have some characteristics, some abilities. You born with this, but after you need to develop them. If you don't develop these characteristics, these abilities, you will lose them in the future. So this is very important, to find players who can be talents in the future, not now, in the future. Sometimes when we select players, we only pay attention if they are tall, if they are strong, but we don't pay attention if they are clever, if they have ability, if they understand the game. So we have to be careful with these issues. On the other hand, I would like to talk about parents. They talk about parents, coaches, the people around the player. This is one of the most important things for the development of a talent. In football, in basketball, in any sport, people around the player are very, very, very important. Of course, the socio-economical context is very important. There are a lot of research where we can find that players who comes from medium or high level economical situation, they have more possibilities to become talents than players that come from poor situations. So we are losing a lot of talented athletes in the way, because they can't continue with their sport because they have other duties, they have to do other things. Now I would like to talk about the training of these people. When we talk about develop a basketball player, a football player, we have to talk not only about training. We have two different ways to train athletes. One is the competition, and the other one is the formal training, what we do during the week with them. Maybe we are very good coaches, we prepare fantastic training sessions, but after, during the weekend, when the player go to the competition is not good enough. So the environment is not challenging for him, so he can't develop himself in competition. So it's very important to put the player in a challenging environment to develop his abilities. This is the second point. And the most important one for us is to make a good selection, because this is a will. We select a player, we give him training sessions, but if in the starting point, if we fail, if we selected somebody who has not enough abilities, enough capacities to become a talent, we are losing the time with him, and he is also losing the time. So we have to try to make a good selection at the beginning. I would like to talk about this a little bit, and I would like to talk about what is happening in Spain, especially in soccer. In my PhD, I studied how we were selecting football players. There are different ways. But mainly, we can say that the selection of players in Spain is made by clubs. So national team players, they don't have to do many things. They only have to go to some clubs and select the players. 98% of the players who were in youth national teams in 2016, they came from clubs from La Liga, from first and second division. Only 40 teams. So they didn't have to do much work because clubs made the work for them. The selection was made before. Also in Spain, we have like a system to select players. There are local selection, after there are regional selection, and after there is the national selection. So we are applying filters in the cities, in the regions, and after in the country. So, well, more or less, this is the way we are working in Spain, and now here in Armenia, we are trying to set different proposals or a methodology to define a methodology to make this scouting process better. We are working in the development of clubs because they are the one who has to work with players. But we are also trying to improve the scouting process. We have prepared a big database. We are evaluating players from 1 to 7. We are getting the average of these evaluations. So like creating protocols to help us to decide who we have to call for national teams.
Vlad, do we have questions from audience?
Yeah, definitely. And before that, I'd like to say something that probably should have said at the beginning. The fact that as Hisham mentioned a little bit earlier, we are doing sports exchanges all over the world through the sports diplomacy program. And actually, I noticed in the audience not only Ryan Murphy, our program officer, who's hopefully going to say a few words towards the end, but also Alan Peterson, the cultural affairs officer from the Embassy of Cote d'Ivoire, and they have an amazing program working with sports for social good in Cote d'Ivoire, and we hope that we are going to have an exchange there soon. I know I mentioned Trina, sports diplomacy also in the audience. So on a regular basis, we do these programs in person, and some of you, Hisham and Hazel, participate in some of them, and hopefully all of you, the speakers, will be part of those. And we are extremely grateful to have you here. Yes, there are questions, and actually it is fascinating to see not only the questions in the chat room, but also the interaction and people offering connections and words about their own work. These webinars are meant not only for our brainstorming dialogue here, but definitely they are meant for you to stay connected. This is the main function. And as you could see, among the participants, it's almost like the United Nations. I think we have like 20, 30 countries in the mix. So that's very, very valuable for your work, for our work, and for everything that you do together. Getting back to questions. So I would like to start with a question, that came from Gul Nahar, and I hope that I pronounced the name correctly. And Gulnahar is asking about situation where kids want to play the sport, but parents oppose it. So in other words, Hazel, you mentioned a little bit earlier the tremendous role that your parents played in your life, and it is well documented. There's a movie about that. But beyond that, there are also situations where parents don't play such a positive role. Either don't let the kids play, or they think of the talent of their kids in ways that are probably disproportionate by comparison to the reality. So what is your experience, maybe we'll start with Hazel, but also the other participants here, with parents as playing a role in the development of talent and developing of sports in general?
One thing that I've seen, and again, I think parents always have good intentions when it comes to their kids. They want their children to succeed. And I've seen so many parents transfer their dreams to their children. So they look at their children, they say, I always wanted to play baseball. And so they immediately push their children towards that box. And I keep going back to that exposure because I've seen kids be pushed into the wrong box and they actually have such great talent. And if they just had the opportunity to find their own path, or for a parent to expose them to a lot of different paths so that they could identify where their strength was, they would go much further. And then sometimes kids, quite frankly, don't like what they're doing because it's being forced on them. And then we don't see that usually as working out. Now, I came from a very unique background, and a lot of people don't agree with this. As you said, there's a movie about my father. He was a major disciplinarian. He was an educator, a famous educator in the United States, and ended up on the cover of Time magazine. And he gave my siblings and I no option. You did what he told you to do, and you did well at it, right? But when I feel parents force and push too much, most of the time, it does not work out. And even with me, it made me very reluctant to run track. I didn't start running track until I was 16 years old, and I almost missed my window to be where I am today. So I think parents really, again, need to be careful about how they transfer their dreams onto their children. They need to help their children identify where their passion is and cultivate that passion, and make sure that they have the right people around them. They step out of the coach's way. I see parents many times want to coach too much and not let the coach have a relationship with the athlete. That's problematic. My father was the type, I couldn't come complain to him. He said, work it out, get out there and do it. And I think those things were really, really positive. So again, parents mean well, but there are some consistent, I guess I would use the word mistakes that they make that can hinder development.
And by the way, the movie is Lean Me On, yeah?
Yeah, Lean on Me. Yeah, the movie's
Lean on Me. Okay.
Lean played my father in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So anybody else? Any other thoughts about this topic?
Yeah, so, Vlad, this is Frank. I in Africa, it can be the other way around. You're lucky if your father or your mother come and watch you play or run track. I think that's an issue that a lot of countries, a lot of young athletes have. You know, where you don't have support at home, you're talented, you have everything it takes. But at home, because you're a minor, your parents don't even let you go to practice. You know, we had cases where, as a coach, you have to go to the parents' house somehow to sit there and meet with them, to convince them to allow the kid to go practice and to play. You know, some parents also, obviously it's about, you know, the social economics background, they only think that you can only be successful if you go to school. You know, that's like the old school parents, you know, they have that mindset that only school. If you play sports can never, you know, give you the resources, can never give you a proper job. That's back then. But nowadays, we all know that sports, you know, can be the way to make you very successful. We've seen that all over. So now the question is, how do we convince a parent to let a kid play? One thing what we notice is, again, I'm going to talk about school. The strategy is finding a way to explain to them that if you associate both, right? Again, we talked about that, school and sports. You know, even football, I started playing football because in Africa, we all start playing football before you play basketball or any other sports. You know, you have to go let the parents know that, by the way, your kid can get a scholarship using the sport. He still can get his education right, even though he still focuses on sports. So there's so many ways to convince them, you know. In my case, I remember personally, I've been through that, is that I was a very good soccer player. I'm over 2 meters, but believe me or not, my colleague from Spain, you know, if you saw me back then, they probably would take me as a team. I was that good, you know. I scored goals every single game because I was much bigger than everyone. And in school, I played, but at home, my parents, you know, they will kick my butt if they even hear that I went to practice. So I made the team. We had to go play against another school from another city. How do I go to that? Because I will have to spend the weekend there. So the school principal had to go to my father to convince him to let me go. So it wasn't easy. And then when I came home, it was awkward even, because it's like I betrayed him. It's like I'm talking bad about him. You know, it's a situation that a lot of us, I'm sure, been through it. So it's a blessing if you have a very supportive parents. And here's, I would say, you know, if you have a supportive parent in whatever you do, I'm sure you can be thankful to it. I'd rather have, you know, unless the child have a medical issues whatsoever. Me, my kids, they will play sports. Or you will have someone that you will have to pay their bills. That's my personal opinion. When they reach 30, 40, 50 years old, you will still have to pay their bills. For me, I see sports as a way out of poverty. That's a personal opinion. Use sports, whatever it is, football, basketball, athletics, to get out of poverty. Because things are very, very difficult here in Africa for a lot of our young people. And we're seeing more and more doing well. And we have to continue as coaches and teachers to also educate the parents and get the parents on our side to continue to work, because we cannot do it alone.
Definitely. And this leads me to Aleko. And Aleko, I'm not going to ask you when is this United going to win another championship. My question for you is the following. United States has almost, you know, the opposite situation. Youth soccer, football in the United States is basically subsidized by parents. It's more or less kind of middle class type of sport where parents put lots of money in the development of their kids. What does it do to the relationship between players, coaches, parents? What does this dynamic do, and what makes it different from what others describe from other parts of the world?
Yeah, no, I'll address that, Vad, and really quickly, just to add to what Frank and Hazel both mentioned, I think it's so important to also make sure that kids are having fun, because at the end of the day, we all know, like Hazel mentioned, for athletes to truly take that next step, there's a lot of work that you do when nobody's watching. And the only way you're willing to do that work when no one's watching is if you truly are passionate about it and you enjoy it. Because if you're only playing or working when someone is telling you to, you're selling yourself short. So just a short comment there. In regards to the youth landscape in the US, yeah, it's been a problem with the growing fees and the cost for some kids to play the sport that they love. And I think that's something that is addressed. I know at Major League Soccer, where I work, all of our academies are fully funded, completely free. That way, cost is not an issue for any player. And we've actually even partnered with sponsors like Audi, for example, to even subsidize the travel and making sure even travel is provided. So an example like Frank is mentioning, where there's no awkward conversations of how do I even get to the game or to the training. So it's definitely something that we're working with and we're working on to improve. But yeah, that's where education is really important, that the parents and the kids know that they're going to the right clubs, because unfortunately it has become a bit of a business, and there are a lot of gimmicks out there that will sell you into buying into a club, and you get all these things that aren't necessarily effective to help you develop. So that's just something that unfortunately is a reality, I think, all over the world.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and it leads me to another question that was actually asked about by Christina. I think it's about, you know, success being connected to discipline, rules, a certain routine. So what's the you know, balance between discipline in you know, developing talent in sports, and creativity, freedom, fun, as you mentioned? You know, you could start like a bit, but maybe others also have some thoughts about this.
Yeah, I'll just say it has to be a fine balance, because, and listen, every sport is different as well. For soccer, for football, you have to be able to express yourself when you're on the field. But it's unique in that you express yourself and you show your personality, but you have to be connected to your other 10 teammates on the field and to the 11 opponents that you're playing against. So that's where in soccer, the beautiful thing about it is that no matter what your personality is, you can find a way. If it fits within the rest of the group, it's a beautiful match. With that said, yes, discipline is extremely important, because I can go to any park in the world, anywhere across the world. I can go to a park, jump into a pickup match, and find players who are talented enough to be professionals. But for all that talent, I can probably find a lot of reasons of why they didn't make it as a professional. Discipline, as you mentioned, is a key one, but it's how coachable are you? How do you work with teammates? How do you deal with failure? How do you deal with pressure? How do you deal with success? Like all these different variables, there's a very big difference between being a very good or very talented athlete and being a professional athlete. Those are two very separate things, in my opinion. And I think our job as coaches, as educators, is when you can nurture that talent and teach them the different traits that translate into being a professional. Those are the key to now separate, because I think, as some of the other speakers said, at the next level, everyone is good. And it's just very tiny little things that separate you from the rest of the pack. So I cannot understate how important all those little things are.
Yeah, one thing that impressed me the most, Hisham, in your program in Morocco, in Casablanca, is the fact that your program, your youth development in sports, is a community, approach. It's basically we involve everybody. That means, people are recognizable on the street. So there's this very strong connection to the community that you've built. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, because it involves coaches and kids and educators and parents and just, regular people on the street who are aware of what you guys are doing.
Yeah, thank you, Vlad, for this question. As you know, at TV, we know already that we can't do everything by ourselves, and we need a strong community to help us to, of course, to achieve our goals. So basically, we're working with parents. We integrate them in our process. They can travel with us as a chaperones in all our activities. They can also help in practices. They can also help in classes with other kids. Also, we're doing partnership with Minister of Education, because we know that education and sports is something related. We can't be like an athlete of high level without being a good student in classroom. So we're trying to work on it too. And we try to build a really strong community to achieve our goals. So this is how it works with Tibu. Now we're trying to work in all over Morocco. Actually, we have centers in more than 16 cities in Morocco. So we try to touch all other cities.
Yeah, definitely. And, a question for Ruben. So Ruben, you had an opportunity to work with young players, but also players who achieved, tremendous success. Yes. But we do know that there's always the risk of careers being derailed by, not being disciplined, not following rules, being in the wrong place with the wrong people. What elements of education that could be built in early in the career could help players deal with basically what becomes their lives as professionals? Money, with all kinds of attractions. What kind of character building should be included in order to protect them in as much as you could, in front of these temptations and risks that could derail their careers?
Okay, there are mainly two personal characters that are the most important for the development of talent in sport. The first one is responsibility, and the second one is emotional stability. These are the two more important personal characteristics. And this depends on the coaches, but depends mainly on the parents. So after you were talking about discipline and creativity, they can be in the same way. They can be together. You can be very disciplined, and at the same time, you can be very creative. Parents, they have to support their children as much as they can. Sometimes they won't, but they can't. But at the same time, support doesn't mean to let the children to do what they want every time. To be a parent means that you have to help your children to follow the right way. Sometimes you have to say, stop, you can do this, but not this. You have to continue, you have to be serious. So it's a balance between support and discipline. And this depends mainly in the first ages on parents, because when players are 15, 14, at this time the coach gets a very important role in children's life. The coach, the friends, at the early ages, parents are like the main role for children. But when they are teenagers, the role changes, and the coach takes this position. So this is my point of view.
Yeah, there's another quick question from Samia. The question is, if the kids start at an early age, I know, Anna, who's actually other than our colleague, a member of the executive committee of the Indian Football Federation, if the kids start at an early age, and in their case, UEFA has a program for 3 to 5 now, is there a risk for burnout or injury, or is it too, is it something that could create obstacles in their future development? Maybe Ruben, you could say a few words, and maybe others have thoughts.
Of course, there are a lot of examples. You only have to go into YouTube, and you can find millions of parents who are uploading videos of their sons, like if they were Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi, or something like this. They have millions of followers. So this is not good for the children, because in the future, when he is 18 years old, if he is not playing in a professional league, what is happening with these children? So we have to follow the normal development. The children are children, teenagers are teenagers, and professionals are professionals, and we have to help them in the different stages.
Definitely. Any other thoughts on this topic of starting too early, or when should kids start practicing sports? Anything? Okay. Yeah, Hazel?
Well, I mean, I kind of already said it, but this is something that I'm very passionate about, so I'll just briefly say it again. I do think that it can be very problematic to push children too early. And I really, really go back to, if anything that anyone takes from anything I said, that model of just exposing them to different activities and letting them have fun and find their way. That's the key, I think.
Definitely. So before going back to Anna, maybe she read if there are more questions. I know that it's Eric, and I don't know, Eric, if you could come on camera, I'll say a few words. You had some interesting thoughts about this idea of a kind of a dual track for talented kids, which is both education and development into the sports. So if you could unmute your microphone and come on camera and say a few words about that, it would be probably useful for this discussion. Eric, if you could hear us. Probably not. Okay, so we'll get to Eric later. So Anna, see if you have other questions. Also, not that I want to put you on the spot, but you are working right now in development of women football in Armenia, and all these ideas of societal obstacles and parent problems and mentalities and culture and everything come into play. So if you'd like to say yourself a few words about all these ideas of development of a sport and the relation to the community, please do. If not, you could just ask questions that were asked in the dialogue box.
I'll just say about this new program that we will do with UEFA, because it's very exciting, and it starts, and Ruben knows, it's a Disney Playmakers program. It's for the girls from 5 to 8 years old. So basically, as Hazel said, it's more important to have fun and enjoy whatever you do. It's basketball, football, whatever. So they created this program with Disney, which is an amazing opportunity for the girls to have fun on the field and to be engaged with football from young age. And sure that we have lots of obstacles here in terms of society to understand women playing football in general. It's it's from out of the world here. So we are step by step getting there, and I think that Disney program and the programs like that gives the opportunity girls to have, first of all, fun, then again to have the clear pathway to the professionals, and mostly we want to keep them to have life after sports, after professional sports, which is to stay in sports and to become a sport journalist, doctors, psychologists, whatever they want to be, but to be in sports. Like I did with my life. So I played basketball since I was 10 and I stayed in sport and I'm working in sport. So I think that this is the most important thing, as to talk to them, to learn how to live after the professional life, after they played and they are not in, in MLS, in NBA and WNBA, wherever. They are not Olympic athletes, but they are in sport and helping the others, the talents, to grow. So this is what I wanted to say. And we have one question from Nitsan, which is they basically want to know the examples on what and how you do when you are testing young children for the talent. If there is any testing, or how the regular coach can go and see or scout the talent and how to identify, like, are there any tools for that?
Can speak to one.
Yeah.
And I benefit from this tool. This is kind of after my time, but lactate testing is something that we brought to our camp and that I actually use with our young people. And what it does, it's a blood test, and it's really not as serious as it sounds. It's a little prick, and it works for many different sports. But what it does is it gives coaches a picture to the potential of athletes, how to train them properly, how to maximize their potential. And even for me, I used it at the end of my career and found that some of the training I was doing was not optimal for me, a little bit too late. But I just do believe that science is a great tool and can really help coaches guide their programs. So that's something that I even brought to our young people in Bermuda. We were able to identify some athletes that maybe were in the wrong event, or maybe didn't have the right base training to be where they need to be. And again, I've seen this work across all sports, and it's lactate testing, and I'd be happy to share any information. I obviously don't do it or administer the test, but I know a lot of individuals who have done many studies and have a lot of expertise in the area.
Can you please share on chat, because people are asking what's the name?
Sure,
Right.
I'll send that now. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll add just a couple points as well. Data and analytics are becoming such a huge part of sport in general. And I think now the capabilities are transferring to younger age groups as well. So everything from peak height velocity to GPS monitors and all kinds of different things that now you can track from a physical standpoint. In terms of the mental or even technical, I think that's the beauty of coaching, because when you're in a session, you can set up different game realistic challenges or different situations that forces a player to make decisions quicker, or to see who the leaders are, or to see who deals with adversity. And those are little tests of just seeing where players are at, and then you try to develop them. I don't think there's any test that you can say, okay, I set up this example and the player showed that they are not a leader, and so they're never going to be a leader. It's not like that. It's something that's always a work in progress. But I think there are certain scenarios that you can set up to see where kids are at. And, I can tell you from an MLS standpoint, we just had a 15-year-old player that was signed to a contract a few weeks ago. And I saw him at age 12. And even before the session started, I was like looking at this kid, the way he was warming up, the way he was communicating. I'm like, wow, this kid has something special about him. And this is before he even touched the ball. But you could already see the professionalism, the maturity, the willingness to be vulnerable. Those are things that are traits that you just notate. And then, of course, a bunch of other things have to fall in place. But there are always little kinds of tests that you can do to see the makeup of an athlete.
Before getting maybe to Ryan from sports diplomacy, maybe you could ask the question, but I would like to just go around the imaginary room now. All of us have mentors or coaches or important people that shaped our lives. So I would like to ask you, who was this special person in your life, coach, mentor, even parent, and why? Very, very briefly. So maybe we could start, Aleko is on my screen, so we could start with him.
Sure. For me, and I've heard, I think, some of the other panelists, it was my father. My father played in the 1978 World Cup. He was a professional player, one of the best defenders in the world. So I was really, really fortunate to learn from him. And that's the way my family came to the United States. Is my father played for the New York Cosmos with Pelé and Carlos Alberto and Franz Beckenbauer. So from a very, very young age, from my earliest memories, was playing, kicking around in the locker room with these legends. But what I'm so grateful for is that my dad also instilled in me that it was first important to be a good person before I could be a good footballer. And that was something that always took precedence over anything on the soccer field. If I wasn't being a good brother, a good son, or a good student, then I couldn't go to practice. That was kind of the lay of the land. And eventually, and also when I was on the field, there was a higher standard. And for me, the moment that I kind of took off in my own career with my development is when I was able to become my own biggest critic. And I didn't rely on a coach or a parent or anyone else to tell me when things were right or wrong. I started to get it myself to know, okay, this time I cheated myself, or this time I did the right things. And it wasn't about scoring goals or being in the newspaper or anything like that. It was understanding what making the right decisions are all about. And once I was able to get that, I took off. And the one thing I also want to add, which we haven't talked about, it's important to dream as well, because I can't tell you how much of my development was spent on my own, picturing and imagining scenarios or platforms that you score the winning goal or you hit the last second shot or whatever it is. And actually my photo that I have in the background is I scored a goal against Real Madrid, playing for DC United in front of 75,000 people. We tied them 1-1. But I had that situation in my head a million times as a kid before it, became a reality for me. So it was very much a dream come true, but you have to dream it to then be able to step up in the moment.
Yeah, definitely. My photo is not me. I was a handball player, not football. Anyway, so let's see more. Even if you didn't play professional sports, an emblematic coach or a figure of great importance that you are aware of. Let's say maybe Frank, Hisham.
So
yes.
Let's say, I'm sorry, I said two names. So let's start with Hisham, and then we'll move to Frank.
So I played soccer from 7 to 13, and then that told me, you know what, you need to stop playing sport because of your grades. And it was not a topic of discussion, it was a decision. So I can't say why. And I was so sad. And in middle school with my PE teachers, I played basketball, when he told me, you need to try to play basketball. I think it's better for you. And once I'm in my club, so one of my coaches told me, you're good, but not good enough to be a high-level athlete. So why not? You can be a great coach. I saw how you talk with people, how you need to help them. And I started thinking on it. And it takes me really a big time to convince my parents, because no one in my family do sports. And then I'm so grateful to this guy, because I was his student and one day he's my colleague. And I just want to say thank you to him, because he's my mentor, and he helped me a lot to work in education and to do what I really want to do.
Definitely. Frank?
Yes, in my case, growing up, I had Dikembe Mutombo, Hakeem Olajuwon pictures in my small house. And like Aleko said, you dream about it. You don't know how possible that can be. That dream may be a reality or not, but every day, you look at them. They're from the continent. They were able to go to the States. They're able to go to school, and they made it to the NBA. And I never knew that one day I was actually going to be close to those guys, because after I went to the camp in South Africa, Dikembe Mutombo was there. I was just a camper. And then 10 years later, when I came back on the continent, we've been working together hand to hand. We WhatsApp each other all the time. We joke around. It's unbelievable. They gave me advice on certain things, on projects that we're trying to do on the continent. They're fully involved. Every time we have youth development program, I just pick up the phone. I say, hey, Dick, we have this and this happening. Can you come over? Can you send a video? Like 3 days ago, he sent a video to one of our programs in Nigeria, which is called the Power Forward program. Now, for him, just to talk to the youth about, not using drugs and staying home and keeping safe during this pandemic, etc. So those guys have been my role models since I was a young boy. But today, again, they're still my role model, and yet, we still work together, and it's been a great joy and a privilege.
Definitely. Ruben?
Well, I am very lucky because I'm probably working with the person with the best person who I could be working with. He is a teacher like me. He is from my city, and I am a coach. I am a coach since I was 15 years old, and now I'm working with somebody who has won everything. He has been coach of coaches for more than 30 years in Spain. So I'm learning everything with the best. So I think now I'm living a dream. I'm very lucky because I can learn from the best. So his name is Ginés Melendez.
Definitely. And Hazel, you kind of told us a little bit, but in addition to your father, any other coach, any other mentor?
You know what? It's not just my father. I think it's my family. I was very blessed to be raised in a family with a lot of identifiable role models. So even my mother doesn't get a lot of attention, but she was a top educator and she was very disciplined. And my sister and brother, obviously, full scholarship athletes and world-class athletes. And so I think the combination really inspired me and helped me to realize very early what the opportunities that were available. For me, something my father always said was, nobody's going to care about your medals, how fast you ran at a certain point, doesn't matter. Nobody cares. The important thing about life is to leave your community better, to serve others. And if you don't do that, your life was meaningless. And I think that's the thing about everyone on this panel that I admire, is that everyone is giving back to the community and serving others. And sports are really a vehicle for all of us to do that. So I've tried to do that with young people. Anna, I just have to tell you, I admire what you're doing with women. It's so important. And I cannot tell you, as a woman that's an athletic woman, how much it's helped me in the corporate world to be kind of a champion in life beyond sports. And so we've really got to make sure that we instill those values and those basics in women and really continue to build up our women to understand the power of athletics. So yeah, I just really admire everything the panel's doing. And I was raised to believe that we have to serve our communities and we have to make sure that we touch at least one life. And I think we all can say we've done that. So.
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, social responsibility and athletes involved in the community, which is huge theme these days in the United States and globally, will be the subject of a future webinar that we are trying to put together. It's such an important topic, and it's linked to education, and it's linked to this connection that athletes are privileged to have with their fans and their communities. It's a very important topic. Let's hear, if Ryan is still with us, maybe he has a question, maybe he has a comment. So Ryan Murphy is the program officer from the State Department Sports Diplomacy Division and an amazing sports fan of all sports.
Yeah, so thank you, Vlad. As always, I mean, another great panel, great topic, great panelists. I think you all really hit the nail on the head for why we do these programs. We don't necessarily do it, even though that's the main topic, to really develop the next champion, develop the next kind of great athlete. We do it to create and help develop youth as the next global ambassadors. We at the U.S. Department of State in the Sports Diplomacy Division, we use sports as that hook to really bring people together. Our mandate from Congress is people-to-people exchanges. So it's so great to see so many people on this webinar that have participated in our programs, either our sports visitor programs, our sports envoy programs, our international sports programming initiative programs. And it really emphasizes why we do these programs. As so many of the panelists touched on, we're looking to help individuals kind of get more of that global perspective. It's not just about the sports, it's how you can use sports. It's creating opportunities to develop the next coach, the next sports administrator. It's not just the athletes themselves, it's all the other avenues that are out there. So just really want to thank the panelists for doing this. Thank Vlad and Anna and others for really putting on these amazing sessions that I know are so useful to so many people. And just some of the comments in the chat are just really emphasize how receptive people are to these topics and really emphasize why we do these programs. So thank you all.
And thank you, Ryan, for making all this possible. We really hope that soon we are going to resume our exchanges, that all of you will be part of them. Thanks again for being with us. Thanks to the audience for coming in large numbers. Again, this webinar was also simultaneously on Facebook and YouTube. We had some audience there, and the recording of this webinar will come to all of you, and you could use it, for your communities. What's important for us is actually to create a community of our own, a kind of a global family of sports, with people interested in different topics, and we hope to work together when we go back to normal life or even before that. So I want to remind you that this has been a webinar produced by For Learning Digital Communication Network, supported by State Department Sports Diplomacy Division. Thank you all. Please stay safe and continue to enjoy sports as much as you could these days, either as a spectator or practicing sports. So thank you again for being with us.